to welcome everyone on our Zoom call today and those who may be watching on YouTube or social media in the future. We're glad that you've chosen to learn more about the Centers for Spiritual Living and our founder, Ernest Holmes, and how we interpret having a spiritual connection to the universe. This connection is based on pulling the best parts from many different teachings and religions and the intentions of the teachings of Jesus. Notice I said the intentions of the teachings of Jesus and not the literal translation. Some of our practices include prayer and meditation, being mindful and present, envisioning, which is an amazing process if you've never done it, is by asking yourself a very specific set of questions when you're trying to make a big decision in your life. Being silent, being self-aware, journaling, and all of those things that bring us peace and joy. We practice gratitude in everything that we do. And we do our best to be compassionate. And we have a sacred study, whatever that is for you. For June, we talked about the body, how to love it, and that it remembers. What we do to it, how we talk to it, how we feed it, both spiritually and literally. Our annual theme of Living Everyday Wonder continues as we switch to relationships for July. My talk title today is Me, Myself, and I. Sounds kind of whimsical and like very self-centered, but please hold because we're going to take a little metaphysical walk through these three themes. Now, our relationship with ourselves is the foundation upon which all relationships are formed. Which do we choose? Self-love or self-hatred? Self-worth or invalidation of ourselves? Our invitation today is to learn ways to love ourselves and practice this deeper, fuller, more complete embodiment of love. The way we relate to ourselves, one another, the world, and spirit are all interconnected and inseparable. We cannot claim to love God while hating ourselves. We cannot declare that it is a just and equitable universe while treating each other, other people, animals, the earth, unjustly and inequitably. This month is the invitation to anchor in the spiritual practice of engaged relationships and actively reveal in the wonder of how each relationship is ultimately a relationship with spirit, with itself. Remember, we believe that God and I, God and you are one, right? So that relationship with spirit with itself is ultimately our guiding principle. The self-identification part, or me, which is our first of three, as the multifaceted beings that we are, offers us an invitation to align and unify with the various aspects of our lives. Looking at our lives, we may see that we are an employer, spouses, artists, students, parents, grandparents. If we do not value ourselves, that unworthiness shows itself in our job, in our marriage, and in everything that we do. It resonated with me as the physical self, or as A Course in Miracles calls it, the egoic self. When we learn to look at the layers and aspects of who we are and how we show up, we develop a greater sense of awareness in our lives. We understand Audre Lorde differently when she said, there is nothing as a single issue struggle because we do not live single issue lives. We do not live single issue lives. We now see that we cannot just heal one area of our relationship with ourselves. The wonder of this relationship encompasses all that we are, even the parts we do not like. Even the parts we do not like. Living everyday wonder means learning to care for, nurture, and envelop our whole self, especially those hurt, shame-filled, and guilt-ridden parts. I was running Thursday morning this week, thinking about the time in my life when I was in the best physical shape I can remember. That time was in June 1988. I graduated high school in June of '87 and was shipped to Navy boot camp in Orlando, Florida in February of '88. In June, I could run 5 miles at the drop of a hat. I was 19 and ready to take on the world. What I had not connected yet was the physical and spiritual aspects of my life. That would not come until much later, even though I had grown up hearing these teachings since middle school. If my body was healthy and responding, I moved ahead like everything was okay, until it wasn't. I'm sure we can all relate to those times in our lives when exercise released those endorphins that made everything okay. The exercise allowed us to escape from whatever was going on. We are told that exercise is a great stress reliever, and that is true. And still, it is also essential to incorporate being quiet and meditative within that regimen to ensure a whole relationship with the self. You can exercise too much. We're also encouraged to look at the types of exercise we're doing, especially as we age. Are we still trying to keep up with the 20-year-olds, or are we choosing more appropriate types of exercise for our bodies? Hopefully, we're combining the meditative aspects and exercise into one routine. It goes to my golden rule of working smarter and not harder. I hate to exercise. I find it absolutely torture. But I was talking to a friend about it last week, and she described it as part of her daily routine. Part of what makes her whole and healthy. And it got me thinking, why can't exercise be like meditation is for me now? I started using the mantra, God is, I am, the last few times I ran. Like, I'll be like, God is, I am, God is, I am, God is, I am. And next thing you know, I was at the end of the block, ready to turn around and come back. It was much more tolerable having that conversation with myself than, God, I hate this guy. I hate this guy. When is it going to be over? I hate that. So I have a long way to go, exercise and I, building our relationship. But we will get there because now I'm willing. Before, I was not willing, which I'm finding that is a huge part of healing all of those layers within myself as I go through this journey of awakening. From the physical aspect of our conversation, we move on to the spiritual, or self-care, for another word we can use. As a deep and abiding spiritual practice, myself demonstrates that we understand and recognize our value and worth to ourselves and to the world. We have often heard the body referred to as the temple of God. Or, do you not know that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit within you, whom you have from God? Spirit is not just within us. The body itself is spirit. Caring for our bodies demonstrates our appreciation of them and all we do with them. The self-care is not just our physical selves. Our mental, intellectual, and emotional selves benefit from how we nourish our mind and hearts with love, empathy, and compassion. Self-talk is an excellent indicator of what we think and feel about ourselves. God, I am so clumsy. I am such a fool. When will I ever learn? God, I hate exercise. You know, you have no business eating that piece of cake. You already weigh, blah, blah, blah. You know, we do it to us all the time. Each of these inner dialogues indicates some level of blame, shame, and self-incrimination. It is an excellent opportunity to recognize the tendency to engage in such discourse and criticism with yourself. What nurturing and compassionate statement can be used to lay a new foundation without adding to it? God, I am so clumsy can become, stop right there. I am not clumsy. Just because I have tripped or knocked over a glass does not give me the right to judge or label myself as this, who and what I am. I am God, and I am an expression of gracefulness in all ways. This statement of gracefulness is something I needed to hear as a teenager, because it was so bad when all of my sisters would come together in the kitchen. We'd be like bumping into each other and tripping over things and just like falling everywhere. It's like we were all so clumsy. That's all we heard. You're so clumsy. And we demonstrated that younger. And it's funny how those things continue to perpetuate through our lives. And to be able to say that I am an expression of gracefulness now it feels much better. You know, we pay attention to the words we say to ourselves. We have often been on those calls where we had a friend that spoke to us. As we speak to ourselves, we would not be friends with the person. Are we coming at our lives out of guilt and obligation? Or are we coming from a place of love, experience, and compassion? What if we honestly made an effort to find joy in everything we did? How different would our lives be? Everything. We find joy in the mundane. It builds over time, and then it becomes completely unconscious. Just like all the terrible self-talk has become completely unconscious over our lifetime. I'm going to encourage you. We have homework today. Next time you walk by a mirror, I would like you to pause, turn and face yourself so you can look into your eyes and really see yourself. Can you get into the habit of saying, I love you to yourself in the mirror? Try it and report back next week what happened. I'm really interested to hear how it feels and what it registers and what kind of like change comes over you, because it's pretty amazing. Now, if we have a strong emotional relationship with ourselves, then we tend to not get our feelings hurt so easily. We tend to not think that everything is happening is about us. We also don't think that everything is happening to us. You know, I shed my cloak of victimhood when I truly understand who and what I am. And that reflection of that relationship is shown back to me in those quiet moments of reflection. It didn't happen overnight. There were even times of questioning if I was doing the right thing, especially as the fear-based ego realized that it was losing control of how I showed up in the world. Newsflash, when the ego gets threatened, it gets louder and louder and louder for a period of time. So don't be surprised when this happens. It's all part of the process. But over time, with more and more confidence and more practice, for me, it has become a real thing. And it is usually the first thing I think of instead of an afterthought later of how I could have done things differently. Thank goodness. That's been a long time coming. The biggest test for me is when situations stop reoccurring in my life. How I know when I haven't gotten it is when I keep seeing things over and over and over again. You know, that's how Spirit and God shows up in the lessons to learn in life. Why do I keep seeing this? It's because I haven't answered it correctly. I haven't done the work to heal whatever it is that this experience keeps bringing up. Lastly, we will examine the I. When we look at the I as the whole of everything, the whole of all there is, the whole that is God, the whole that is the universe, and what that means. From a very young age, we get told that God is separate from us. For me, that gave me a feeling of aloneness, and that I had to do or be something that God would approve of, never to measure up. But what Science of Mind has taught me is that God and I are one. We are the same, which can be for some a very difficult concept to believe. When people ask me about the Centers for Spiritual Living and what we believe, this single concept is where I lose most people, because we have been taught for so long about separation. When I know that I am never alone, I becomes much bigger, all-encompassing experience, as opposed to a single linear definition. It released me from feeling I have anything to prove. That as long as I remember who and what I was, in all things, everything would be okay. Now, our affirmation for this week is: the universe loving itself is expressed as my self-love. The universe loving itself is expressed as my self-love. Pretty special. when it just starts flowing and you start thinking, it's like, this, can this be real? Can this be true? Can this be how I'm showing up in the world? It's just so special. Now, I encourage you this week to explore yourself with wonder in your heart. Get to know yourself as if you were going out on a date. Become your own best friend in the process, and begin to fall in love with you. Maybe this occurs by treating yourself to a special dinner, a day trip where you get to enjoy your own company, or a unique gift you give yourself as a way of saying thank you to you. Whatever method you choose, honor and celebrate you. And let's be honest, this will be challenging for some of us. It will be challenging. This is where we're invited to ask a trusted friend, minister, practitioner, therapist, life coach, to guide us on the path of rediscovering just how spiritually magnificent we are, and how that magnificence is evident in our lives that may seem and feel mundane and anything but wonder-filled, especially with all the things going on in the world. But if we try, we can see God in all of it.